Hey everyone, Sam here from Sugar Spun Run, and today I'm showing you how to make a classic blueberry pie with a lattice pie crust. This blueberry pie recipe is my favorite. It's very simple to make, it has a really great fresh blueberry flavor, and we're going to be starting with my classic favorite pie crust. Now, I shared this recipe with you in the past. Today we're going to be making a double pie crust, and we're going to be using a food processor. If you don't have a food processor, don't worry because you can just use a pastry cutter instead. But if you have a food processor, you definitely want to use it. It's going to make everything really quick and easy. Now, to begin, you are going to need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We're going to add this to the basin of our food processor. And we're also going to add 4 teaspoons of granulated sugar and a ½ teaspoon of salt. Now we're just briefly going to pulse together the ingredients just to get them nicely combined. Next, you're going to need 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now you want this butter to be very cold, and I've gone ahead and cut this into about tablespoon-sized pieces and then cut those pieces in half. This is just going to make it break up into the pie crust a little bit easier. We're going to scatter this butter evenly over the surface of our flour mixture. You don't want to drop it in just a large clump. Now use your food processor to just pulse all of the ingredients together until the butter is nicely cut into your flour mixture and the mixture should resemble coarse crumbs. The final ingredient that you need for your pie crust is 1/2 cup of sour cream. This is my favorite secret ingredient to use when making pie crust. It makes everything come together perfectly. There's no fussing with ice cold water. This is my favorite pie crust recipe and the sour cream is the reason. We're just gonna drop the sour cream into the canister, and now we're going to pulse everything again until the mixture comes together and starts to actually clump together. Now you don't want to overdo it, but you do want your mixture to begin to be clumping together before you take it out of the food processor. So this is actually looking pretty good right now. As you can see, if I press it between my fingers, it holds together really nicely. Now, as you'll remember, we are making a double pie crust. So what we're going to do now is we're going to divide this pie crust in half. I'm going to make sure I remove this blade because you don't want to cut yourself. And we're just going to divide the dough into 2 equal-sized pieces, and I'm going to be placing the dough on 2 sheets of plastic wrap. And yes, our pie dough is still a little crumbly. That's totally fine, but we're going to fix that right now by using the plastic wrap and using our hands to mold this dough into a disc. You never want to overwork pie crust, otherwise that takes away from the flakiness of it that everybody loves with a good pie crust, but you do want to work it with between your hands so that it's nice and smooth and the edges aren't jagged looking. That's going to make it so much easier when you go to roll this out. We'll take our pie dough over to the fridge where it's going to need to chill for at least 30 minutes. While your pie dough is chilling, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. At this point, we can also prepare our blueberry pie filling. What you're going to need for this is about 5 heaping cups of blueberries. You'll want to make sure they're rinsed and picked over so you don't have any stems in here. We're going to add 2/3 cup of granulated sugar, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now use a spatula or a spoon to just gently toss these blueberries in our sugar, cornstarch, and salt mixture. Once everything's nicely coated, we're also going to add 1½ tablespoons of lemon juice and toss that in with everything else. Once you have everything tossed together, we're just going to set our blueberries aside. You're going to want to let them sit in their sugar mixture while our pie crust finishes chilling. Now, once your dough is finished chilling, we can go ahead and start rolling it out. We're going to start with just 1 piece to begin. Place your pie dough on a clean, lightly floured surface, and then you'll want to dust the dough with a little bit of flour as well. We're just going to use a rolling pin to roll this out into about a 12-inch round circle. This is looking pretty good, so we're going to just roll it up and transfer it to a 9-inch glass pie dish. So you want your pie dough to be sitting nicely up against the glass or ceramic of your pie dish. That's actually perfect. This looks really good, and you do want to have a little bit extra hanging off the sides like you can see here. We'll trim off any excess later on if we need to, but you want a little bit extra for our lattice pie top. We'll show you how that goes in just a minute. For now though, we can take our blueberries that we just prepped and we're going to pour these. We're actually going to give them another stir real quick, and then we'll pour them into our pie dough. I'm just going to use my spatula to just kind of smooth out the berries a little bit so we have a nice, pretty even layer inside of our pie. Now I'm going to set this aside and we are going to roll out the other half of our pie crust. Just like with our first pie dough, we're going to want to roll this one out into about a 12-inch circle. Okay, so I'm not great at rolling out a perfect circle, but this is going to work perfectly for our lattice topping. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to cut this into about 1-inch strips. Now, you can just use a knife or a pizza cutter. That'll work fine. I like to use this little pastry cutter I have that has a little ridged wheel. It's just going to make the topping look a little bit prettier. I'll see if I can remember where I bought this from, and I'll leave a link in the description below in case you want to use the same one. I'll usually trim off a little bit of the edges because we're not going to be able to use them when we do our lattice pie topping. So I'm just going to trim these and discard them. Now we'll take 5 of these strips and we're just going to lay them across the surface of our blueberry pie. Now making our lattice topping is actually really simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take these strips we just laid out and we're going to fold back every other one a little more than halfway. Now lay a long strip of dough down the center, and we'll fold back those strips. Now take every other horizontal strip and fold that back over the vertical strip you just laid down, and we'll lay another vertical strip. We're just going to repeat this on either side until we have a nice lattice top. You're going to want to trim any excess hanging pieces of lattice, and you can just toss out the excess pieces. You don't need them for anything else. Now, if you remember, we do have some excess pie dough from that first crust that we laid into our pie plate. We're going to use that and kind of pinch it or fold it over the lattice just along the rim. Then I just like to use my fingers to just kind of make a nice little design around the edges. Before we bake our blueberry pie, we're going to want to brush the top with a simple egg wash. You're just going to need 1 large egg, and we'll add 2 teaspoons of water, and just use a fork to scramble these two together until they're nicely beaten. Now I'm just going to use a pastry brush and dip that in my egg wash and just gently brush this over the surface of my pie. And before we go any further, there is one thing I forgot. I always tend to forget this. Before you put your lattice work topping on your pie, I usually like to dot the pie with about 1.5 tablespoons of butter. I'll cut the butter up into small pieces and just dot it over the blueberries. Now, because we have a lattice work pie topping, we can actually sneak these pieces in even though we forgot them where we were supposed to add them. Ideally, you'll just want to not be like me and you'll want to try and remember this. It makes everything a lot easier. Now the final thing I like to add to my pie before it goes into the oven is a sprinkling of granulated sugar. Now my preference is a coarser turbinado sugar or a coarse cane sugar. I like using that, but regular granulated sugar will work just as well, or you can leave this off entirely. It's going to stick to the egg wash that we just brushed our pie crust with, and it just makes the pie look nice and pretty. Okay, now our blueberry pie can go into our 375-degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, where it's going to need to bake for about 50 minutes or until the center is bubbly and the crust is a nice golden brown. Now, ideally, you would want to let your blueberry pie cool completely, or at least cool just about all the way before slicing and serving. I don't have the patience for that, so this is about 2/3 of the way cooled, so I'm going to go ahead and cut in right now. This might be a little messy. Oh yeah, this is still really juicy and it's still pretty warm. So I promise your pie will be a little bit more together when you cut into it. Blueberry pie is usually a little bit messy anyway, but I have a feeling things are about to get really messy right now. Okay, that actually went better than I thought. This is still pretty warm, perfect for topping with vanilla ice cream, but overall it's actually in pretty good shape, even though we didn't let it cool like we were supposed to. So that is all there is to making homemade classic blueberry pie. Really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe video, and if you try this one out, I would love to know what you think. Also, you see we've got some blueberry juice puddling around the sides. You're always going to get some of that whenever you have a blueberry pie, but because it's warm, it's a little worse right now, just so you know. All right, I really can't wait to hear what you guys think of this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. All right, let's dig in. Get some of that top crust in there. Some blueberries. What I love about this pie is that the real blueberry flavor really shines through. Sure, it's accented with some lemon. You've got the sugar, the sweetness from the sugar in there, and you have that crisp, buttery pie crust on top. But overall, the blueberries are the real star here. This is a really good blueberry pie. I think you're going to love it. Hey, if you guys enjoyed today's blueberry pie recipe video, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Also, if you enjoyed today's recipe video, here are a few others you might like as well.